Welcome back to another episode of Interventions and Detentions. I'm Brad.
And I'm Kylie.
And we are at episode 111.
Woohoo! 111.
111.
Page Turners.
Page Turners, where this week we come to you talking about some of our own favorite educational, professional development type books. A topic we thought might be of interest. It's so hard because if you Google educational books,
there's a lot that comes up.
Literally thousands of books.
And they're about different, there's so many different areas of leadership, I feel like, too, that it's just hard to...
leadership, instructional practices, behavioral, special ed. It's really hard. I know when I recently moved from my previous job to here, I left a lot of books behind because I just, didn't have room for them anymore. Didn't want to toss them out. But yeah, you just, as educators, I feel like that's probably the one thing that we collect are books. And so it's hard to bring the top 5 books today, and I don't even know that this is truly my top 5. But
I would agree.
It's 5 that I picked. Yeah. How's that?
Absolutely. But they are good ones that we... So what we're kind of going to try to do today, we each kind of picked our top 5. We'd like to talk about 3 honorable mentions each, and then really kind of dive into 2 of our top books that we have been helpful to us, I guess, in our leadership journeys. And maybe they can help you. Maybe it gets you interested in wanting to read them. Yeah,
and it's the books as educators have so many different uses. Like I said, we use them for PD a lot. We've done book studies.
Yep.
That's really popular in schools, or just for personal reading. I'll be the first one to admit I am not a reader. It's just not something that I enjoy a lot of times.
I never let myself just sit and read either.
No.
I'm always like, I should be doing this, or I could be doing this, or I should be walking the dogs, or doing... Yeah. So it's hard for me, too, to kind of let myself just take a break.
I think I told you when we were planning this episode, there's 2 books that I have read in my life that were really hard to put down and I got into. One was a John Grissom book. One was a book about the military. And yeah, beyond that, like for me, I will say professional reading can be hard sometimes because sometimes we get told to read something and it's like, okay, I hope this is good. What I try to do a lot of times is pick out the highlights from a book.
Or kind of outline it.
Chapters that I really want to dig into. So, yeah, it's, everybody has their own way of approaching these books. But, again, we're going to share out some of the books that we thought they've been useful to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's put it like that.
Well, do you want to kind of just dive right in? Do we want to dive right into our top 5?
Let's dive into the page-turning pool.
Ooh, that was good.
And see if we sink or swim.
Okay.
So I think Kylie wanted us to just kind of tell you the 5 books by title first.
And then we'll kind of dive
we'll jump into them. Yeah, because we're going to kind of focus on our top 2, I think, to go into a little more detail. But we're going to have some honorable mention top 5 books that we'll share a little bit on. Maybe just tease a little bit. Pique some interest out there and maybe give you guys some things that you haven't read before or maybe some ideas of, hey, I'd like to check out that book. So, you wanted to give your 5 that you picked out, Kylie?
I can do my 5. So, my number 5, and it was hard to rank them, really. So, here's our honorable mention. Number 5, You Win in the Locker Room First.
I've never heard of that book before.
We'll get into it in a little bit. We'll go into detail more, but it was a good one. Number 4, Row the Boat.
Not heard of that one.
Okay.
I'm going to have to check out your top 5, I think.
I know. Number 3, The Knowledge Gap. You have read that one.
I have read that one. We did it as a book study here last year. Great book.
And then my top 2, Lead for God's Sake.
I like the title.
Yes, that was a good book. And then my number 1 is Start With Why.
Okay.
So that's my top 5.
Nice.
We'll dive into them. Brad, what's yours?
So, again, really hard to pick. Kind of looking at my shelf of like, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. And mine kind of hit everything from leadership to instruction to classroom management.
Yeah.
But starting with number 5, The Essential 55 by Ron Clark. Moving on to number 4, Looking Forward to Monday Mornings. I think it's going to be kind of fun to touch on that a little bit because that's kind of a school culture book that I find really useful and interesting. Number 3, a framework for understanding poverty by Ruby Payne. This is a book that my original copyright 1996, I think, the year before I started teaching. So that goes way back.
And there's been some updated versions and those kind of things in
Absolutely.
that book. A lot of people have read that one.
My top 2 that I'll spend a little more time talking on when we get into it is, the first one is Whatever It Takes. It's really big on PLCs from Rick DeFur. So, great book. We'll dig into that. And my final one is Teach Like a Champion. So, those are my 5. Could have picked 15 more, probably.
I know. There was so many to choose from.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just kind of dive into it. I mean, let's talk about it. So, we'll go through title of the book, just a super short kind of what it's focused on. Is it the, intervention piece? Is it the whatever? And then kind of just build on from there.
Sounds
good. Sound good? So my number 5, you win in the locker room first. The 7 C's to build a winning culture. So it's kind of a coaching leadership book. I think when I read it, it was more of a coaching. I was in that coaching realm. But it applies to everything. So it just talks about, it's by John Gordon and Mike Smith. So if you know John Gordon, there's a lot of books. His books are really short, easy to read, kind of nice grab and goes.
Nice grab and goes, good.
Yes. So it just talks about the importance of building just good cultures within your teams, within your building, whatever, before you can succeed. So
nice.
With what you're trying to do with your goals. It outlines the 7 key principles, the 7 C's, but some of them are clarity, commitment, connection, communication. So just kind of short and sweet, kind of puts it all out there. I just kind of liked it. And again, I was kind of in the coaching realm, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
My number 5, again, was The Essential 55, which is by Ron Clark, an award-winning educator, where he kind of lays out 55 rules to help kids be successful in the classroom. And I guess also to help teachers be successful. And I can't go through all 55, but as I would summarize this book, it really focuses on one word, and that's respect. And when I stumbled upon this book, boy, it's been probably 10, 12 years ago. Used it to shape the procedures that we do. Kind of tied it into some of the PBIS things that we were doing at schools, and just bringing everything back and tying it to that word respect. How do we show respect in the hallways?
Cool.
How do we show respect in the bathroom? Respect, respect, respect. And our life skills, kind of, if we had a pyramid, I would put respect at the top of it and fill everything in underneath it. So it gives a lot of practical life lessons for kids on how to be respectful and etiquette. Simple things like saying thank you when an adult is addressing you. It helps build leadership and teamwork. But again, probably the most common theme is building that respect culture across the classroom. It's very high energy. I've not had the privilege to hear Ron Clark speak.
I wanted to, though.
I know. One of my peers, shout out to Andrew Baran from Lakeland Intermediate School, assistant principal there. He just went last week.
Oh, wow.
And got to listen to Ron Clark in person.
Oh, that's cool.
Andrew was a big fan of this book and a big proponent of it. So, again, really strong values, consistent expectations, helps students thrive academically with the Essential 55.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. My number 4 book is called Row the Boat. Have you ever heard of that one?
I've heard a song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
Similar.
Okay.
So, again, by John Gordon. I'm telling you, I really like his short, kind of to-the-point books. And P.J. Fleck, the football coach at Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
So P.J. Fleck kind of coined the term Row the Boat. It's part of just creating that collective effort that's going to carry you through with your team.
Okay.
So he was the coach at Western Michigan, and then he moved to Minnesota, and he's always had this row the boat kind of mentality. So
Okay.
it's just talking about working together, that leadership piece, how to get through adversity, that you always
Nice.
got to keep rowing.
Sounds
I don't
really
know.
inspirational.
It's very inspirational. I've always been a big fan of PJ Fleck, so I really was excited to read it.
I just like the name, PJ Fleck.
Yeah, it's cool.
I want a jersey that says Fleck on the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I liked it. Again, short, quick read, easy to just pick up in one setting and be done with it. So
Nice.
That's my number 4.
Honorable mention number 4 for Brad is looking forward to Monday morning. Don't you want everybody coming into the building on Monday saying, "It's Monday"?
Yeah, the title of this book, when I first saw it, I had never heard of it. But when I first looked at it, Brad brought it to our meeting, I was very intrigued by it because, normally
It's
people
hard to
aren't looking forward to Monday morning.
Hard to
be
walk
honest.
in to say, "Yay, it's Monday," but this book has this like if you feed them, they will come kind of mentality.
Got it.
It's very much about things administrators can do at the building level to motivate and recognize teachers. It's really as simple as that. Obviously teacher morale and culture matters in a building. So this gives some simple strategies on how to celebrate educators, boost morale, and that leads to retaining good teachers in your building. So it helps build positive school culture, gives some fun, creative ideas on how to motivate staff, building that sense of community. Little things like shout outs. We've done staff shout outs before on our announcements, and just small gestures that can go a long way to impact how your teachers feel in your building. It's really motivational, I guess, when it comes down to it. And happy teachers create thriving classrooms. So anytime that we can build that appreciation and show that appreciation towards our teachers, it can really transform school culture.
Very good. Okay. My number 3 honorable mention. We're getting close to the top
closer.
2.
So do a drum roll today.
Drum roll for the top 2. This one's called The Knowledge Gap: The Hidden Cause of America's Broken Educational System and How to Fix It. By Natalie Wexler. And we actually, Brad and I and our leadership team last year at school actually did a book study on this where we kind of broke up the chapters. We had some questions we discussed. We kind of all came together and we just had some really good motivational, just kind of interesting conversations about it. So basically, this Natalie Wexler kind of goes through America's education system and how it's unfortunately failing a lot of students. So, and it kind of focuses on reading comprehension, which is a big not a buzzword. It's just a big word in schools at this point right now. So it just talks about, how students lack content knowledge. They need to be exposed to different things in their learning, and how certain curriculum, and it doesn't do that, doesn't hit that. So it was I thought, really interesting book. It's not as motivational necessarily as some of these other ones, but it was about curriculum and about schools in general and about kind of the back stuff that you don't think about all the time.
Instructional practices. I really like that it reinforced the good things that we're doing in our building.
Absolutely. A lot of things that we read in there that they were saying were the right, the better things to be doing, we were already doing. And we were really happy to hear those things.
Central Nova Primary has been very deep in the science of reading. I mean, I feel like previous leaders put us in a good position with curriculum that they purchased for our school ahead of the state when, now we're in that science of reading pool. I feel like we're at the deep end and we're swimming and making waves at the same time. So, but it reinforced a lot of the good things that we're doing here at our building.
So we enjoyed it for a little book study for our leadership group. It was
absolutely
a little change of pace. It was nice.
Yeah, and we did challenge our leadership team then to take it to their grade levels and share out, and we had people borrowing books. And we got some copies. It was good. My number 3 honorable mention is A Framework for Understanding Poverty by, again, Ruby Payne. Again, I think I read this originally as a teacher before taking on a leadership role because, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the whole study about poverty and how children from poverty learn differently and need different things than students that don't have that disadvantage.
And it just gives you a good background of what a child in poverty might look like, too, because it's not just a cookie cutter situation. So it just talks about, you might not be able to see that on a kid. So,
and I thought one of the things I thought was really interesting that really still sticks with me, families from poverty have a different value system. They don't mind spending the money on the satellite dish or the gaming system to go without something else. They're kind of materialistic, it seems like sometimes, and want the possessions versus the value on other things, and like education. I don't know that they always value.
And not always, and that's not everybody in poverty or anything like that. But
and I'm not saying that in a bad way by any means. It's just a different value system. So learning as teachers and educators how we can support students from poverty and those families from poverty. One of the biggest takeaways is just building relationships. And I think that's been a big theme in education now for the last 20 years is building connections and relationships with not only student to teacher, but teacher to families, parents,
and community members.
And community members. I talked a lot about resource gaps and just giving teachers classroom strategies on tools on how to motivate students from poverty, managing behaviors, and building resilience in those kids. To what I used to talk to my kids about is there's life beyond our small town. You don't have to be stuck, for lack of a better word. You can get out, and here's how you do that. Kind of showing them the road. So it's a great book. Lots of updates and revisions since 1996. So check out Ruby Payne, Framework for Understanding Poverty.
Yep, that's a good one. Less of a motivation, more of a super informative, but it's a really good book. All right, so now we're kind of at the top 2.
Woohoo!
I know, I'm excited. So my top 2, I'm going to start with Lead for God's Sake is what it's called.
Okay.
I know. Isn't it a catchy title?
It is.
So
it makes me want to go out and buy it.
Exactly. Tonight. It's by Todd Whitaker. And kind of like you were saying how important relationships are, that's really what this book is about. And if I had to sum it up into a couple words, I'd say relational leadership. Mm-hmm. So it emphasizes the importance of leadership in education. It talks about just urging leaders to be authentic in who they are, lead with a purpose, inspire through actions, not just through words. So, doing the things, just being there, focusing. He encourages people to focus on serving the staff and their community, kind of like we were talking about, supportive environments, and just having a strong moral leadership compass.
Nice.
I mean, it's really all about that. It's the ethics, the human side of leadership. It's kind of that other side. Mm-hmm. It's not just, hey, you need to do this test, we need to do this, our grade's got to be good. No, it's more of a caring, like the relational leadership. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
It's one that I couldn't put down. It was
nice.
Yeah, it is a really good book. I haven't read it in a long time, but I might pick it back up again because it was that good.
Well, it's interesting because your number 2 and my number 2 are authors of, they are some of the premier authors of educational books.
Yes.
You talked about Todd Whitaker. I'm going to talk about Richard DeFore. And this kind of mirrors what you were just talking about. My book is called Whatever It Takes, How Professional Learning Communities Respond When Kids Don't Learn. Again, it's by Rick DeFore. Rick is a big PLC guy. Yep. He's the one that brought the whole professional learning communities buzz phrase to education and getting teachers and schools to sit down in teams and talk about data and where their kids are at and where do we go from here. This book is like the next step of that. Okay, we can meet. Now we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that these kids learn.
What are we going to do with that information that we have?
Yeah, so it takes that PLC mindset and moves it ahead a little bit further. Cool. And Rick is using the experience, his real life experience. He was principal at Adlai Stevenson School. I think that's in Chicago, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. It's an inner city school where he pretty much transformed the school doing a lot of the strategies that he shares in this book. The one strategy that or maybe not strategy that he talks about is that he talks about, I hope our kids succeed. Well, he also says hope is not a strategy. We can't just hang our hat on hope. We need to know how we can guarantee that they succeed by building in systems to support student learning. That's really the overall umbrella of this book. It talks a lot about collaboration, again, data, communication, all of that stuff, and not working in isolations. Teachers have to work together to use that data to drive instructions and interventions. So a great book, kind of motivates you to really take it to that next level. And, I want every teacher to have that whatever it takes mentality.
Yep, absolutely. All right, my number 1.
Here we go.
This is one of my favorite books of all time, actually. Oh, drum roll, please.
Where is it?
Down at the bottom.
It is. Okay.
Right there.
Drum roll. And
go.
Drum
roll, please. Start with Why. How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek. And wow, what a great book. So overall synopsis of it is talking about you need to inspire by actions and on why you do things. So why do you do what you do? Not just what are you doing.
Kind of reminds me of like every kid in this building. Why?
Why? Yeah, it's asking a lot of questions, but
why?
It challenges leaders to figure out their why. Why are you doing it? Is it just for a paycheck, or is there, what else is there? It's not just what or how you're doing it. He talks about how starting with a clear why is going to help you attract loyal people who feel the same way, who have those same morals, have the same values. It's going to help you make better decisions, because you know exactly why
Yeah.
you're doing things. It's going to give you and the people that you're working with a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, and it's just a good way to kind of keep yourself focused
Nice.
on what you're doing. This was something that, this wasn't a required read at a previous school that I worked at, but this is something that our superintendent every year in our first year meeting said, why do you do what you do?
What's your why?
What's your why? And it was so important that we knew our why, showed our why, and just based everything we did around our why. And this book really kind of encompasses all that. It's really one of my favorite books. I really like Simon Sinek, great author, easy to read, very motivational, but
Nice.
really down to
I want
earth.
to check it out because I've not heard that book, but
Yeah.
like I said, it sounds interesting and very motivational as well.
And it can also, and he talks about in there too, that it just makes your job more fun and more rewarding when you know your why, when you
Nice.
have that purpose and you're not just doing it to do it. So, just a really good book. I'd recommend it to anybody, even administrator, teacher, anything.
It sounds like it'd be good for anybody in education. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, here's my drum roll. As we look at number 1 for Brad, mine was Teach Like a Champion, 49 Techniques That Put Students on the Path to College. And I don't even care if we're looking at path to college. I would say maybe path to success. Being successful, whether that's college, trade school, job, whatever you want. It's by Doug Lemov, and it really just has lots of strategies, techniques on great teaching. And he talks about great teaching isn't magic. It's a set of strategies that really teachers use to boost success. So he talks about things like no opt-out strategy, which is where students participate and engage even when they're unsure of an answer, which I think is a simple skill, but sometimes we overlook that in a classroom. Like,
Right.
You don't know the answer. Okay, I'm going to
All
go
right,
on.
I'll pick someone else.
Come back to you in a little bit. Or cold calling done right, where you're keeping your students alert and accountable, fostering engagement and full class participation. Talks about the right is right approach, which just pushes for complete correct answers. So it's kind of going from answering the question, whether it's right or wrong, to now I want you to make sure you've got that right answer every time I call on you.
Kind
So
of that higher level thinking piece.
yeah, going deeper, higher level, really pushing the engagement and focus and the rigor. So again, it's just full of great ideas to spark better instructional practices in your classroom. Chapter 2 was one that stood out to me. It's all on planning, beginning with the end in mind, which is something that we talk about a lot. Don't focus on where I'm going to start. Let's focus on where I want my kids to be.
What's the expectation?
Yeah. Why am I teaching the material that I'm teaching today? What's my outcome? What will my students understand versus, hey, what do we do today?
Right.
So a great book for administrators to give to teachers to say, hey, if you're struggling and you need a little, focus, here's 49 techniques that you could implement today in your classroom.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
like that. So kind of just going on, that was a lot. I know we gave you a lot, but we wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of each book that we really think have been helpful to us. And I just want to share that I do think, and I think Brad thinks the same, it is important for continuous learning for educators, for administrators. I know that we said, we're not super great at reading extra books, but I've always wanted to continue to learn. That's just me, and I know a lot of administrators and teachers are the same way. So picking up some type of book like this, getting a little out of your comfort zone, even if it's not something that you normally would pick up, just to help improve you as a person, and then that's going to pay off with the people you work with and the students and everything like that.
I know when we go to things with other teachers or other leaders, that always comes up. Hey, what are you reading, or what have you read, or have you read something that would help with this?
Right. There's so much information out there. It's good to continue to read and continue to gain that knowledge.
Right. We talk about educators being lifelong learners, and this strategy helps us learn new strategies, gives us ideas, but it also helps us reflect on what we're doing and, either may and reinforce, hey, we're doing all right, or be
Absolutely.
like, we need to do better, and maybe I can use this technique or strategy from this book. So we'd love to know what you guys are reading. We want to increase our listening fan base activity. So when you see these podcasts posted on different social media platforms, please chime in and say, hey, I really liked what you guys shared on this book. Have you read this book? We want to increase our libraries. So
we would love to.
Love to hear what you're reading and why you're reading it, what's good about it. So
or something you've read in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking for good recommendations, definitely.
I know.
Made
it to the end again.
We made it to the end. We had some rapid fire questions, but I don't think we're going to need to get into that. I feel like we've covered a lot with the books that we shared.
Okay, one question.
One question.
Do you prefer hardcover, paperback, ebook? What is an ebook?
Like a book on your phone.
Oh, okay. Like a Kindle.
Kindle, yeah.
Or audiobook?
You want to answer first? Or you want me to answer?
Well, I asked you. So.
Okay, so I would say mine, I love audiobook. I would much rather listen to a book than to read. But again, it just depends. I do love the smell of a good book. Like if you walk into Borders or a bookstore, something about this.
Do they have Borders anymore?
I don't know.
Borders, I think, is.
What's the one in Fort Wayne?
R.I.P. to Borders. Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. There you go. Yeah. So you walk in and you just smell books. Like, I love the smell of a good book.
Okay, I get that.
What would you pick?
I go back and forth through. Sometimes I like my Kindle. Sometimes I don't like hardcover. I don't like hardback books. They're not for me, I don't think.
I think I like the feel of a hardback book.
I like the feel, but
to read it, yeah, it's kind of hard
to carry around with
you. They don't open as nicely sometimes.
So I do like a good audiobook. Sometimes I have trouble focusing. So like an inspirational administrative book wouldn't be audiobook. Yeah. I need like just a funny rom-com situation on an audiobook. So I would say probably paperback. Just something I can have in my hand that I can highlight. I'm a highlighter and a tabber.
Yeah.
So I like to have that paper.
All right, let me throw one more question at you, and I'll answer it too.
Okay.
What's your favorite non-educational book that you've read?
Ooh.
This is truly rapid fire because you didn't know I was going to ask this question.
I don't know.
Do you want me to go first? Or?
No.
Okay.
I can do this. I really like Frida McFadden books.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of?
Never.
Frida McFadden?
No. Is that like Molly McButter? Or?
No. So The Teacher by Frida McFadden, it's good.
Okay.
It's like a suspenseful thriller, not too gory, just keeps my attention big. Always, Frida McFadden always has a twist at the end. You never are going to see it coming. Yeah. Ever. That's probably my favorite one right now.
Okay.
How about you?
For me, I'll go back to the military book, Lone Soldier.
Yeah.
Good movie, better book. I think I read the book before the movie ever came out. Could not put it down. I have a friend that's in the military that I could definitely relate to through this book. So it was kind of like living my life through these guys and what they went through
cool.
on a hill one day.
Yes.
Really not a great situation, not great outcome, but just could not put it down. So that was my pick.
I have a book like that too about the Army football team.
Oh.
And it goes through a day in the life of a player on the Army football team. Nice. It is very cool.
That'd be kind of fun to read.
But also couldn't put it down. So.
Wow. Well, hey, let's wrap it up here. Share us your picks of your best educational reads, what you're reading right now, why you're reading. We'd love to hear from you guys. Let's talk about next week real quick. We're going to do the safety dance.
That was a good title. I didn't know that was the title for next week. So that was good.
Just surprise. Here it is.
So our SRO, Officer Tom Locke, will be on the show, the program next week, to share everything safety-wise here at CMP. So we're really excited to have him. He has a wealth of knowledge. We're lucky to have him here, and yeah, we're excited. So
it'll be a good topic to talk about.
Yep.
Hard one to talk about, but a good one.
But a good one.
All right. It is that time. Kylie, what is it?
Okay. Class dismissed.